What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Patricia. First of all, I want to say thank you guys for all the love and support that you've shown me just over the years and since I've kind of been back on YouTube. So before we get into today's video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, turn on your push notifications so you never miss a post. And yeah, let's get into the video. So this video is pretty much going to be like an update. The last video I posted, I was telling you guys that I had recently had surgery. So today is May 4th and I had surgery on April the 4th, and oh wow, so exactly a month ago. And I had to get half of my thyroid taken out because I had a 5.5 centimeter mass on it. And I think where I left off with you guys was just like that I was waiting on the pathology report, but everything looked fine. So turns out everything was not fine. And I was basically diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And so let's just get into that part. So and excuse me if I clear my throat pretty often throughout this video. I'm still healing, and talking sometimes is still like a lot, and it always feels like there's mucus or something in my throat. It's weird. But anyway, so let's start at my follow-up appointment from surgery. So, well, pause. After surgery, you know, I was told that everything looked fine. They had looked at the mass, nothing looked suspicious, so they only took out half my thyroid, which was the plan. But I did give them permission to take out my full thyroid if anything looked suspicious. But when I woke up, they said everything was fine, whatever. So I get to my follow-up appointment, which was the week after. And I honestly thought that that appointment would be quick. So I went by myself. I thought I was literally just going to be in and out, and that they would basically just be looking at my incision to see how it was. So I get to the appointment, and as soon as my doctor walked in, I could tell that he was a little off. And you guys have heard me talk. I love my doctor. He's great. He almost talks to me as if like, if you were my sister or somebody in my family, like this is what I would do. And I like that about him. So when he came in, I was kind of like, this feels different. So I had a steri strip still on my incision, and this is what I look like now. I had a steri strip on my incision, so he took it off, and he was just like, you know, your incision looks great, everything looks good, and he didn't put anything back over it. So I was like, oh, are we just leaving it open like this? And he was pretty much like, yeah, you know, it'll heal on its own. It's good to let the air and stuff get in it. But honestly, when he took it off, you know, that was my first time seeing it, and I was very insecure about it. I didn't like how it looked, and I was just like, no, like we have to cover this up. And I'll explain in a little bit the revelation I got from the Lord through that. But so he takes the bandage off, and then he was like, yeah, first thing first, like, I wish your husband was here with you so that I could explain this to him as well. And I'm just like, what is he about to say? And then he was just like, you know, well, when we opened you up, but first of all, he was very apologetic, and I could tell that he almost felt this sense of guilt that like it was his fault that things weren't okay, which at the end of the day, like what I have going on is not his fault. And so he's just like, you know, everything looked fine. He was like, but when the pathologist looked at the mass, there were a few things that raised a concern for him to be cancerous, but he didn't feel confident enough to say like yes or no. So they sent the mass off for a second opinion. Y'all, I'm sorry that this lighting keeps changing. He sent the mass off for a second opinion to a hospital. It's about an hour away from us. So he was pretty much like, you know, there's a possibility that you could have, I believe it's called papillary thyroid carcinoma, which is essentially thyroid cancer. So he's like, there's a chance that you could have that. You know, we don't know for sure, but basically, I'm sorry that we're here. And honestly, I wasn't too caught off guard because I feel like he kind of prepared me that that may be a possibility. And you know, I was like, okay, well, how much longer is it going to take for you guys to know? And he was just like, I'm not sure. They sent it off the day of your surgery. So, when I hear something, I'll get back with you. So I'm just like, okay. And I wasn't too emotional then. I think I was more emotional about the look of my incision than I was with like the possibility of having thyroid cancer. So, I was a little upset that day because I had to go to the hospital after that appointment to get my labs taken to see like how my thyroid levels were, which thankfully they were normal. But I was just like, there's no way that I'm going to walk in there with this uncovered wound. And I'll try to insert a picture of like how it looked. I had a hoodie on, and I remember like pulling the string, and I remember walking in the hospital like this because I'm like, anybody I see, the first thing their eyes are going to go to is my neck. And I was just very not confident about that yet. So, I get home and I tell my husband, I'm like, this is how the appointment went. It wasn't the best, but I'm still hopeful because, it could be wrong. And at my follow-up appointment, he did tell me that if it was cancerous, I would have to have a second surgery because apparently the best treatment for thyroid cancer is to pretty much have a total thyroidectomy, which is to have your whole thyroid taken out. But because I only had half of mine taken out, and initially because things looked fine, I would have to have a second surgery to go in and take out the rest of my thyroid. Thankfully for this kind of cancer, like there's no chemo or radiation or anything like that. But let's say if I had the surgery and things still looked cancerous, they could do something called like iodine treatments, which is they basically make you radioactive. There's like isolation that goes along with it. I really don't know too much about it. I've like Googled and YouTube stuff, and there's like this little pill that you take, and it makes you radioactive, and they do scans. I don't know. I don't want to be wrong, so I'm not really going to talk about that too much. But so I feel like it took forever for me to get my results, and I got my results before my doctor called me. So the hospital that they sent my results to, I'm already connected to that hospital because that's where I go for my lupus. So my rheumatologist is there, and I have like the portal. And so I haven't seen my lupus doctor in about 3 months. So I knew when I got the alert said, you have new test results. And I was like, I haven't seen her in a couple months. So this has to be the pathology report. And again, I hadn't opened it yet. I hadn't gotten a call from my doctor. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe things are okay. And if you guys don't know, I work in healthcare. So I work at a nursing home, and I am a marketing and admissions director. So I'm constantly around nurses and LPNs. So I have, we have medical doctors. So I was in the right place to get whatever I was about to get so that I could ask questions. So I see the notification that says, you have a new test result. And so I open it, and it says pathology report. And I was just like, oh, okay. And so I'm in the office with our social worker, and I'm like, I just got this. Like, I'm kind of scared to open it. And so she was like, open it, I'm here. So I opened it. And y'all, this is honestly my first time like really talking about this out loud. I feel like I'm probably gonna cry. I feel like I'm a little bit more emotional now saying this out loud than I thought. So if I do cry, please excuse me. So I open the message, and it says like final diagnosis signed off by the doctor, and it says follicular variant of papillary thyroid carcinoma. And so then it says like see below note. So I'm like reading the notes, and it was just like, multiple slides or something were submitted. And it showed definitive areas of the papillary carcinoma, which is the thyroid cancer. So apparently the mass was like full of cancer. And so it literally had my diagnosis as papillary thyroid carcinoma. And so of course, I got that result before my doctor had called me. So there were so many questions I had because number one, I'm like, is this saying that I did have cancer or that I do have cancer? Like that there are still cells in my body. And so I'm like asking the nurse at work, and she's like, yeah, like, I was like, is this saying yes or no? And she was like, It's saying yes. And I remember looking at her and I was like, yeah, I feel like I'm about to cry. And I just broke down. Ooh. I remember just crying and I was just like, dang, like, why? And cancer runs on both sides of my family. So my dad is currently fighting stage 4 colon cancer, which he's doing great. But I just lost my grandma last year. From the time that she was diagnosed to the time that she passed away was literally a month. So she had pancreatic cancer. And so there was like this, it was almost anger inside of me because I'm like, how did we miss this? You know, last year I got a fine needle biopsy of this mass, which came back benign. You know, during surgery, everything looked fine. Nothing looked suspicious of cancer, to only be diagnosed with the cancer. And a lot of people tell me, and it really bothers me, like a lot of people say, well, that thyroid cancer is the good cancer, or, you know, if there was any cancer to have, that's the one because it's the most treatable. And I understand that it's treatable, but I don't want it. Like, I feel like it's almost unfair to say that I have cancer because I have the good cancer. You know what I mean? So that kind of bothers me when I hear that. So I kind of just don't like to say that. And so when I got that, I just broke down, you guys. I broke down. I was at work and I was at work and I was just like, this is too much. Like, this is too much. What next? And it was more frustrating to not have answers and to not have my doctor had called me yet. So I'm just going off of what I'm reading and I'm going off of the questions that I'm asking people at work. And so I finally got the call for my doctor because I had sent a message through his portal and I'm like, look, I got the results. I need you to call me. I need you to explain this. And so he called me and he was like, how did you see it already? And I just got it. And I was like, well, you know, I have access to that portal because that's where I go for my lupus. And so he was just like, you know, yeah, unfortunately the mass did come back cancerous. This is your diagnosis. You know, they looked thoroughly at everything and this is what they found. He was like, so I could refer you to an endocrinologist, but honestly what they're going to tell me, or what they're going to tell you, is to go ahead and get the other side of your thyroid taken out. So what do you want to do? And I was just like, well, if this is my diagnosis, I'm going to have to do it anyway, right? And so he was like, yeah. So this was 2 weeks ago when I talked to him. So we scheduled a surgery for the next 4 to 6 weeks. He hasn't given me a date yet, but I was so upset that I'm having to have another surgery when, you know, this could have been prevented the first time. And honestly, my voice still has not gone back since the first surgery. So I am fearful that a second surgery is going to damage my voice even more. And so I was just like, okay, well, what next? Like, after this surgery, then what? But I did talk to my rheumatologist about all of this because she's kind of been following along with this journey with when I had the mass and things like that. And she's going to refer me to an endocrinologist there, which is, again, like an hour away, which I'm glad because that hospital is great. And so that is where we are. I'm doing okay. There are days where I'm just like, I can't believe I'm going through this. And the one person, you guys, I'm really gonna cry when I talk about this. Oh, the one person that I did not want to tell this news to was my dad. I did not want to tell my dad, and I sat on it because I did not want him to feel like, number one, he's already going through his own battles. But let me tell you how much my dad loves me, you guys. He came from chemo to be with me during surgery. Like, he left his treatment, he came and sat with my husband. But I didn't want to tell him because I didn't want it to be like, yeah, Dad, you're fighting this and I'm about to be fighting it with you. And so I remember what I told him, and he texted me back. I told him through text. I don't know why I did that. He texted me back and he was just like, You are so strong. The same way that you're here for me, like, I'm gonna be here to walk with you through this. And he was just like, he almost felt like his health issues were being passed down to me. And y'all, I have not always had the best health. Like, I have lupus, which thankfully I've never had any major issues with it, but like growing up, I was always in the hospital. So, you know, like, this is not his fault. And when I read that, I was just like, oh man, like, I want him to heal, and I don't want him to have to worry about me during his process. You know, like, he should be able to heal on his own without having the stress of his daughter going through stuff. And that, telling him, was hard for me, you guys. Like, it was hard for me to tell my husband, but telling my dad, oh man, it took so much out of me. And I don't even think he understands how hard that was for me. And so I began to pray, and I was just like, God, you obviously have me going through this for a reason, but I need you to show me why, because I don't understand. I don't want to have surgery anymore. I don't understand why this is the route that I have to go. And I just kept hearing him say, just let me heal you. Just sit there and let me heal you. And if you guys don't know, I do lead praise and worship at our church sometimes. So the one thing that I cannot do right now is sing. And the most frustrating thing is to sit there and listen to people lead songs that I've led 1,000 times and I can't get anything out. I'm typically an alto, and if I even try to sing anything, I'm like a tenor, barely. Tenor is even high. And so it's just been this season of literally sitting and just waiting on God. And that is not always easy, especially when you've been doing something consistently and now that one thing is taken away from you. And so I've just been sitting, and I'm like, God. And now knowing I'm having a second surgery, like, how much more damage is going to happen? Like, will I ever be able to do this again? And even the revelation that I got from my follow-up appointment when my doctor took the bandage off, it was almost like he ripped the band-aid off, he put salt on the wound, and then he just left me exposed to deal with and process what he had just told me. And so, like I said, this scar, well, now I'm okay with it, but initially it was something I was very, very insecure about. So I'm just like, God, you're exposing me. But the revelation that I got from that is, like, sometimes there are areas that God has to expose to show you where you need healing. And not only did I need physical healing from this, but there was a lot of heart healing and mental healing that I needed that I wasn't even aware of. And thankfully, thyroid cancer is the good cancer, but any type of diagnosis like that, or any type of illness, it really makes you reflect and evaluate things in your life. And this season the last 2 weeks really have consisted of self-evaluation for me, and it really made me think about my life. It really made me prioritize things, and it really allowed me to see the parts of me that weren't so good. You know, it's easy to blame other people or friendships for why certain things ended or why certain things happened to you. And during this time of healing, the Lord was just like, hey, Patricia, like, you haven't always been perfect either. And let me show you these parts of you that are ugly so that you can work on them. So when I heal you, like, you're going to be healed for real, and people will know that you're healed. And so there were situations that I had to think on and say, man, like, I could have handled that different. I could have taken better care of myself here. So I am really just in a place where I am sitting and I am letting the Lord heal me, however long that's going to take. You know, that's just what I have to do. And I am hoping this surgery is sooner rather than later, so I can just get it over with and, you know, just go on about my life. So yeah, this is where we are, unfortunately. People have asked me, I've shared this news on Instagram, but of course I haven't updated anything on YouTube, and people have just been asking like how I'm doing. And honestly, like, I'm doing okay. There are days where it's a little bit rough because I'm sitting there and I'm having to process my emotions. Then there are days where I'm just like, you know, God, there's glory in this. I may not see it now, but everything that we go through is for a purpose, and you obviously have a purpose for this. So however you want me to walk through this journey, like, I'm going to do that. But nobody at the age of 29 wants to know that cancer is going in their medical records. But I am doing okay. I will say I have such an amazing support system, just with my husband and my family, and even people on Instagram. When I shared it, like, so many people reached out to me, have encouraged me, have shared their own stories and their own journey. And it's just so encouraging, you guys. Life is short. It's so short. You never know. Things can change within a second. And so I just want to encourage you guys, as I'm encouraging myself, to be intentional about everything in your life, the people in your life, the things in your life, and don't take anything for granted, especially time. Time is something that you can never get back, so use it wisely. Well, you guys, that concludes today's video. I know it was a little bit heavy, it was a little bit rough, but this is where we are, and all will be well. So if you have any questions, if you have any more suggestions for me on things that you would like to see, please don't hesitate to leave them below. I would love to hear from you guys. Thank you guys for all your love and your support over the years. I appreciate it more than you know. I'll see you on the next one.